All right, all right, all right. Let us get started here. All right. Hello, Lucy. How are you? Oh, I'm not hearing anything. It looks like you are muted.
Yeah, I gotta get used to muting on the computer. I usually mute from my microphone and I muted it twice this time. So thank you for the reminder. Did you get
Uh,
any rest?
yes, I
Okay,
did
good.
get some rest. I did get some rest. Fantastic. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. We are going to dive into this. Welcome to Hosting Etiquette for the Modern Woman. This is a masterclass brought to you by Luke Hazley and me. I am Maggie, the substitute teacher. This is Luke Hazley, and we are the founders of the Finishing School for the Modern Woman, which is our flagship course. It is an 8-week privately taught course to ladies of all ages who are interested in refining their etiquette, elegance, and femininity. In addition to that, we have a lot of content that we do live and available to everyone in the public. And we also have, just like this, some private master classes that we offer. So for all of the details, you can go to teachablemomentswithmaggie.com, and we are going to get started. All right. So Lucy, did you want to say anything else before we kicked off?
Welcome, everyone. And I hope that you take as much information that you can share amongst your family, your young ones. This is sort of like a refresher course to all of us. We already know some of these tips and tricks. And for those of you who haven't, you are going to learn some really cool stuff.
Absolutely. So at the time of this recording, we are approaching the holiday season here in the US, which is a time that people gather. But this actually can be helpful any time of year, anytime you're around others. One of the modules that we cover in our finishing school is on dining etiquette. And we actually had a request that we do a deep dive. So this course is going to tell you from A to Z what the host is responsible for, what the guests are responsible for. So as you're mingling and interacting with people, whether it's family or business or whatnot, you feel comfortable and at ease in all situations. So I am going to share my screen, and we have a lot that we're going to talk through, and Lucy and I will give you give you advice from our perspective and our lived experience. So again, welcome to class. Okay, so again, in this course, we are going to talk about everything that is required for a flawless, or as close to flawless as you can get, dinner party, whether you are hosting one in your home, whether you are invited to someone's home as a guest, or if you're going out for a team meeting or a family celebration at a restaurant or other location. All right, so let's talk about elegant dining. And the term elegance sometimes gets, tossed around like it might be a bad thing, or you don't have to be elegant, but really elegance is about the way we as ladies carry ourselves. And I believe that it does kind of flow through as a red thread in everything that we do. There's an elegant way of speaking. There's an elegant way of dressing. There's an elegant way of getting in and out of a car. Likewise, there are elegant ways to dine with others. So that's what we're going to talk about here. Lucy, did you want to add anything about elegance?
It also has to do with understanding that you're not alone in an environment and being conscious that there's people surrounding you and being considerate about your surroundings as well.
Absolutely. All right. So let's talk about the importance of dining etiquette. So, etiquette is another one of those words that people think, oh my gosh, that's a little bit over my head. Simply put, etiquette is about knowing the acceptable protocol in any situation. So, there is dining etiquette, there is communication etiquette, there is greeting etiquette. So, it evolves over time with what is acceptable in polite society, and it's situational. So, the etiquette that you may have when having a formal dining event Obviously, that's going to be different from what you might do just with friends and family when you're at home. But we want to make sure that our ladies and our students are prepared for any environment. So that's what we're going to talk about here. Did you want to add anything, Lucy?
No, we're good.
All right. So let's start with the invitation and the RSVP. That kicks off any gathering, any dining event. So as a host and also as a guest, I would advise that you always try to have some type of invitation. It doesn't have to be a fancy scroll like this. There are online solutions. You can send emails, you could send a text message, you could send something handwritten or something printed. The importance is that the invitation really sets the tone for, excuse me, the type of event that you as the host want to take place, as well as it informs the guest what to expect when they show up at this event. So all of the information that's included in the invitation would be the same regardless of what format you use. So of course, the location, the time, the dress code, the menu or type of food, the type of gathering. So whatever you want people to know and be prepared of, that's what should go in the invitation. Lucy, did you want to add anything?
Yes, and speaking of what should go in the invitation, some invitations may request if you're sensitive to any types of foods, that's when you're responding, that's the time to say, yeah, I'm vegan, I am allergic to seafood and so forth. Just because as the host is being considerate of you, it's important to be considerate of our host and share some of that information.
Absolutely. So you see here the RSVP, which, and I do not speak French, but it's respond, s'il vous plaît, which is if you please. It's really not a request. I would argue if you as a guest have received an invitation, you should respond. It's actually poor etiquette to just leave it unresponded to. And even worse etiquette to just show up unannounced. The reason why is because you never know if the host had to make some adjustments to the guest list based on capacity. Proper etiquette is within 48 hours or as close to as you can, having received that invitation, you should respond. If you need to politely decline, you don't have to give a reason for the decline. But like Lucy said, this is the time when, if it hasn't been specified in the invitation, you can reach out and ask any questions about menu, about dress code or whatnot. So there are no surprises. All right. So again, the invitation sets the tone for the dining experience. One of the things that I want to make sure that our students know, when you dine with others, it's never about the food. I know we all like to eat, and I am a foodie as well. But when you're gathering with others, whether it's for the holidays or whether it's, in-laws or Easter, whatever you celebrate, it's about the connection that you're building with others. So as the host, you want to make sure you've kind of set the tone. Are you expecting something formal and paced as a course meal? Is it going to be a potluck? Just bring something. We're going to be watching the game. Is it going to be there's a new family member? We're welcoming a new baby or a new bride or whatever. As the host, you want to make sure that you set that tone, and that's what the invitation can help you with. And as the guest, once you receive that, if there's anything that's unclear, this is the time to ask. Lucy, did you want to add anything?
I do. And that's an opportunity for you to make the decision whether you truly want to go to that event. Because if you're kind of like a fair weather friend and you really don't want to go, it is your time to say, no, thank you. And if you want to really go and create those relationships, connections, and so forth, it's important to open your heart to making it as a guest, a great experience for the host and for everybody else.
Absolutely. I love that. All right. So let's dive deeply into the role of the host. We're going to move into the next section here. So let's say you are hosting people in your home or at a restaurant, but you are coordinating or you're responsible for an event. And I love what Lucy said. We'll talk about the guests in a moment, but one thing to keep in mind, ladies, if you receive an invitation to someone's home, which is a very intimate space, that's someone's private space, you should decline if you would not feel comfortable reciprocating the same. So don't feel pressure to attend something just because you've been invited. If you really don't feel comfortable, thank them and then politely decline. All right. So let's talk about what is the host responsible before the event. All right. So you can see here in the graphic, we've got someone really putting the best menu they can together. Ladies, allow me to relieve some of your stress as a host, again, because this is not about the food. So we don't want the guest to worry about, is it going to be everything that I like on the menu? As a host, you shouldn't put pressure on yourself to deliver an exquisite 5-star meal. This is not what it's about. You want to set the tone to be warm and welcoming, to have people come and have a good time, make connections, have a conversation. So if that means you have to lower the complexity of the meal, I have made this mistake, then you could do a simple spaghetti and garlic bread and Caesar salad as opposed to worrying about a souffle that's in the oven. Because when your guests arrive, they're going to be taking their cues from you as to how to conduct themselves. Can I relax? Can I laugh? Can I have a good time? Or is everybody kind of uptight? So you want to make sure that you've done enough preparation before and make sure that you have gotten the type of meal plan that you can enjoy and others can enjoy you. Lucy, what did you want to add?
I agree. And the beautiful thing about the modern world now is that you don't even have to uh, do all the cooking. There are so many places that do the catering that you can pay a certain amount. Even Chipotle has these amazing setups. They come in the trays and everything else, but it's about you providing that meal to everyone else and setting it up on the RSVP, saying whether it's a potluck food or it's a casual dinner will be I don't know, prepared by Chipotle and so forth. Just putting the information on the RSVP to make your guests more comfortable coming in.
Absolutely. All right. So let us continue. So let's talk about the venue and the table setting. So as Lucy said, if you're going to be hosting at a location, let's say a restaurant, you don't have to worry about the table settings. You're paying, this is part of the service that you're paying for. But if you are dining at home, sometimes if you have it catered, they will provide some of the tableware, but you definitely want to think about this in your planning and preparation. So let's take them one at a time. So the venue. Again, your home is your private, intimate space. Some people feel comfortable welcoming people into their homes. Some people do not, and that's okay. So if you are going to be having people in your home, make sure that, you've tidied up and you're clear what spaces are available for guests and what are not. And you communicate that or make it very obvious. Likewise, if you're going to a venue outside of the home, you want to consider certain things, ease to get to, parking, and these are the types of things that you want to communicate in your invitation. Do they need to plan, for valet or whatever the information is so that it's a seamless experience? Then when you arrive and you get to the table settings, you just want to make sure that everything or as close to everything that's going to be needed for the meal is available. So do we have the pitchers for water? Do we have the ice? Do we have the serving spoons? Do we have everything that we need? Because I've made that mistake before. Sometimes you worry so much about the food and then you forget, oh, my place setting is only for 6 and I've invited 8, whatever it is. So just some things to think about as the host. Lucy, what would you add?
And as the host on the RSVP again, you can have a note. If you have any questions, please call me at this number, something that they can contact you immediately, because it could be that it's the day of and they lost the card or they lost the information, and they can reach out to you to ask those questions.
Absolutely. Okay. So let's talk about seating arrangements. Now, as the host, it is your job to kind of um, control the flow of how people arrive and where they sit. Now, it could be something as casual as just take a seat wherever you feel comfortable, or in some formal occasions, you may want to have place cards or ask people to sit in certain locations. The guests should absolutely respect that, but you want to keep that in mind. One thing to also consider as hosts, to make sure that it's a smooth dining experience, because it's not about the food, it's about the connection. You can seat people together that may have something in common when you introduce them that they can talk about. Maybe they're from the same city in another state. Maybe they recently traveled to another country. So it would be easy for them to get along. Also, another tip is if there are going to be people at the event that maybe don't get along as well, you can sit them or seat them side by side as opposed to across from each other, so they don't have to make as much eye contact. That's something to keep in mind. And then when it comes to couples, although couples often arrive together and leave together, unless they're newlyweds, the proper etiquette is actually to do every other, so man, woman, if you can, because again, it's not about just staying with our little group and who we know and who we're friends with, but really trying to make the entire atmosphere pleasant for everyone. Lucy, what would you add?
Also, as a host, if you are one of those families that, as a customer in your culture, do not allow your guests to wear shoes in your home, have it arranged that they can you can have disposable shoes or disposable things that they can wear as they walk into your home, because some people are a little particular whether if they want to wear shoes or not, but because of that you need to provide an option on what you want them to wear when you come in.
Absolutely. I love that tip. Thank you, Lucy. All right, so during the event, so your guests have arrived, the food is ready. We want to make sure everyone is having a good time. So, as the host, again, you set the tone for the flow of the conversation and the flow of the meal. So, depending on how formal it is, when people arrive, you may have some little nibbles for them or some, light beverage for them to have. But when you're ready for the meal to begin, then you would signal that by either announcing, or you would come to the table and tell everyone, all right, we are about to enjoy the meal, so they can come from wherever they are and join you at the table. They should be waiting for your cues as the host. So you're the leader in that sense. And then when you sit down, whether you start the meal with a prayer or a blessing or a toast or whatever you do in your culture, you would indicate when it's time to start eating. So if you wanted to do a toast to the new couple or introduce people, you would announce that, and then the guests are waiting on you to begin eating or to announce, say, go ahead and begin eating. So make sure that you are mindful of that. Also, as the courses are served or as the meal is winding down, your job as the host is to kind of observe how everyone else is doing and pace your eating with your guests. I know, but as the host, sometimes that means that we may not be able to enjoy, everything at that temperature, because if someone's a little bit slower, your food might be getting a little bit cold. But again, it's not about the food. The reason why is you don't want to hurry up and then your plate is clear and you have a room full of people who are talking and enjoying and taking a few bites, and then because they're looking at you as the host, they're feeling anxious about eating. So try to time the pace of the meal with your guests so that everybody feels comfortable and adjust accordingly. Lucy, what would you add?
Absolutely agree. The host sets the tone of the event. If you have a relaxed host that you know that they're taking care of things without any issues, you feel good as a guest. There's no worse thing than to see a stressed out host, because again, for me, I would think, oh my goodness, am I being a good guest? So as a host, just set the tone for everybody to be relaxed, chilled, no big deal, no big deal. Even if things are going crazy in the background, you as the host need to be cool and collected.
I
Mhm.
love that. Absolutely. And it comes with practice, ladies.
Yes.
All right. So let's talk about ordering and serving food and drinks. Now, if you are a host and you're hosting at your home, then you would have already prepared the menu, or like Lucy said, either had it catered or maybe you have a chef on hand to take care of that and it would be served accordingly. If you are hosting outside of the house, then you would probably have already planned as you reserve the space, what menu you want to make available for your guests. So sometimes you can work with the restaurant to have a specific menu. You all have probably been to those events where they give you a condensed menu where you can choose 2 or 3 things from each section. Or if it is the type of event where everyone gets the menu book, you will be setting the tone for what they can order. My advice would be, especially with a large group, to make it as simple as possible. I'm one of those people that too many choices, I want everything or I can kind of delay. So maybe you choose a few things that they can have from. If not, what you order will set the tone for what they can order. Meaning, if you order a modest glass of wine, they will have a modest glass or should have a modest glass of wine. If you don't order alcohol, they don't. Dessert, likewise. So if it's something that you are fine with people having whatever that they want, make sure you say that, oh, I'm not drinking today, but please enjoy yourself, or no desserts for me, but please enjoy yourself. Same thing with the menu. So if you order a modest chicken dish, that's what the type of price point that the guests would be looking at. So if you want anything other than that, just make sure you communicate. But ideally, as the host, you've put some thought into what you're going to serve or what you're going to make available for people to choose from, as well as considering, like Lucy said, any dietary restrictions or any allergies. I don't want to say preferences because people have their preferences and that can get a little bit loosey goosey. But back at the stage when you're sending out the invitation, you should ask if there are any dietary restrictions. Likewise, the guest should inform so you have made plans for that. All right, Lucy, what would you add?
I agree. On the invitation, you could also include a sample menu or a complete menu to let them know that there are limited options, and any other options they can probably pay on their own. But on the that's why the RSVP is so important on the host side and on the guest side. But as part of the host, because you're the one setting up the ground rules, I would say that's where it would be the opportunity to let your guests know how it's going to be set up.
Absolutely. All right, so let's continue. All right, so now the food is coming, people are eating, people are talking, not in a work environment, but you understand. So if you have seated people or at least introduce people to others that they may have something in common with, you might not have to do very much at all with conversation flow. But as the host, keep your eyes out. If you have someone who's an introvert or a little shy or new to the area, you may want to make sure, kind of check in on them, make sure they're having a good time, or they've at least found someone they can connect with. Likewise, if there's a loudmouth or a know-it-all or an extrovert, you may just want to kind of keep eyes on them that they're not dominating the conversation. Maybe say, hey, could you come help me with something? If you have someone who tends to drink a little bit more, just make sure that you're scanning the room, not to be intrusive, but you want to just make sure everyone has a good time. So again, you may not be able to focus solely on your plate. So I would advise have a little something to eat before your guests come so that you can attend to everyone's needs. Of course, in conversation, there are some topics that are easy for everyone to chime in on, and we'll talk about some topics that you want to avoid, but you just want to try and have that light banter that you hear when you go to a restaurant and you hear the clinking of the glasses and the silverware and people are laughing. That's kind of what you're going for during your dining experience. What would you add, Lucy?
I have nothing to add. I would just say that limiting the alcohol, uh, providing alcohol and maybe intake, that is such a great idea, because again, if you're inviting new folks, you don't know how well they take alcohol. So, and you are, fortunately or unfortunately, you are responsible for what happens within that environment. So sometimes not having a limit in alcohol could create a little bit of a challenge managing your party or your event.
Absolutely. Great tips there. Okay, did I go all the way to the end? I'm sorry, y'all. All right, let me just make sure. I clicked all the way to the end. Okay, making guests feel comfortable. So we talked a little bit about this, and really, again, we talked about it at length. As the host, it's your job not to cater to every little thing, but you do want to check in on people, especially if you have mixed company. You want to make sure that everybody's having a good time. Some tips that you can do if you notice, I love what Lucy said about limiting alcohol. Another thing you can do is save maybe one glass of champagne at the end of the meal with dessert or as the toast towards the end. So it's not just a complete open bar. If you know that there are going to be, people from rival industries or whatnot, you just kind of keep them occupied in other areas. Or sometimes you adjust the guest list because you may be friends with a variety of people, but they may not all be friends with each other. So just keeping in mind that people come from different backgrounds. Hopefully your guests are there, they're ready to celebrate with you, but you do want to make sure that you try to take care of people that have come to your home or to your space, because as the host, that is your job to make them feel welcome. What would you add, Lucy?
Nothing to add.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about the unexpected. Now, hopefully, as we do in the finishing school, one of the things that we're very passionate about is making sure that this etiquette and this elegance that we talk about is really about being considerate of others. So you shouldn't have to worry about people unexpectedly dropping in. If you try to take the approach, like we said, as far as the invitation, or at least letting people know if you have the type of guests that might do that, unfortunately, we're limited to space. This is going to be an adult only event, or however you would want to put it. But in the case that someone does bring someone unexpectedly, as the host, you don't want to make a scene in the moment. Some things you can do to prepare in advance: always have an extra entree or an extra something, even if it's just a soup or a salad, kind of tucked away in the fridge, or maybe you order just a little bit more or cook just a little bit more. And you just want to try to go with the flow. Sometimes you have to be fast on your feet. I wouldn't do anything in the moment because that additional person may not know that they weren't invited. You don't know that message that was communicated to them. After the event, you have a decision to make if it's something that you want to address with the person that did bring that guest, or maybe you just decide, you know what, next time they may have to sit that one out. If it's, an innocent mistake, I wouldn't kick up any dust because of it. If it's a pattern, I would probably just say the next time that person doesn't get to come, because that can throw things off. But the key is, in the moment, try to keep your cool. Lucy, what would you say?
Oh, that's a good point about not making it an issue when it happens, because you don't know that extra person may have been told that they were invited as well. But I agree. Maybe allowing this to happen once from that same person. Okay, the second time it happens, then you address it, and that's where you set as a friend your boundaries. And if it happens again, then next time that may not be the right person for that event.
Absolutely. And likewise, with unexpected situations, if there's a topic that someone comes and it's starting to get a little argumentative, you can a little bit loudly. So, what's everybody doing for summer vacation? You can kind of make a point about redirecting people's behavior. All right, so let us continue. So we've talked a lot about what the host is responsible for. Hopefully that's helpful. This next section we're going to move into is as a guest. So you have been invited to someone's home or to their holiday party or whatever it is. What are your responsibilities? So let's talk about it. So We said in the beginning, the host should send out some type of information, invitation to let you know what to expect. Your number one job is to respond as quickly as possible. Thank them. If you have to politely decline, again, you're not required to say why. You can just say, thank you so much, but I'm unable to attend, unfortunately. If you want to send a modest gift, if it's a wedding or bridal shower or baby shower, you absolutely can. But the key is just to respond so that the host can be clear what to expect and they don't have anything sprung on them at the last minute. Would you add anything else, Lucy?
Us women, we tend to be a little more gentle about saying no. This is the part where you do say yes or no, because again, remember that the host is also, if it's a bigger event, they are counting the plates and the amount of how much each of that plate goes. So it's part of the budget as well. So in this part of an invitation process, this is where you absolutely have to say yes or no to an invitation.
Absolutely. And if you say yes, ladies, attend. It is horrible etiquette to say yes and they've planned for you and then you're a no show. Don't do that. All right, so now as the guest, what are you responsible for before the event? So you're excited, you're going to such and such occasion or party, you were asked to attend. Very exciting. So referring back to that invitation, make sure you read it. I've made that mistake. I went to a bridal shower, no, a baby shower. She wanted everyone to wear green because that was her favorite color. And I just kind of skimmed it and I didn't pay attention until right before, and I had to run to Target and get something green. So make sure you read the invitation. Make sure you're prepared for whether it's valet parking or if it's self park, make sure you kind of know your transportation. Try and sort these things out as soon as you can. If, like Lucy said, you have any clarifying questions for the host, try to reach out as soon as you can when you receive the invitation. If you have any allergies or dietary restrictions, make sure you make that clear. When you go to the event, you want to try and eat a little bit something before you go so that you're not hangry, but you don't want to be so full and just sit there and not eat. So really take time to plan and know and honor the host's wishes. For example, if they say no guests, I'm sorry, no guests, no gifts, because let's say it's a destination wedding or something like that, and they don't want to have to carry it back. Just honor the host's wishes. You don't want to do just whatever you want to do. What would you add, Lucy?
I agree. And then there's one thing about the RSVP: when you say yes and somehow something happens that you cannot attend, when the minute that you find out that you have a conflicting event with that date, call the host and let them know that you won't be able to attend. Just because it's as a guest, you've already said yes, and it's part of that mutual courtesy that we provide each other as friends.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about what do we wear to the event. And I know this graphic is a little bit funny, but it does highlight the point of being in a place where you wish you had put a little bit more effort into your appearance. So as the host, you want to make sure that if there's a dress code that you're expecting, say that in the invitation. If this is formal, if this is casual, if it's Sunday best, if it's, summer chic, whatever. There's so many ways to communicate how you want people to dress. And the invitation should communicate that and you carry it all the way through. So as the guest, honor the dress code. I have made huge plans. I remember for my 40th birthday party years ago, and it was formal. I hired a chef. It was, a once in a lifetime thing for me. And I invited a certain person who wore a uniform for work, and they came straight from work with their sneakers and their uniform on. And I just remember every time I looked at them at the event, I, I was so disappointed because I had planned this a year out and they didn't even try. So, as the guest, you don't have to go out and spend a lot of money, but if it is, black tie or whatever, make sure that you have something that you feel comfortable around others. And that with the appearance, make sure you're groomed and you're ready to be presented. I think that's just good for every day, but especially when someone invites you. What would you say, Lucy?
I agree. And to to be sure that you're wearing what you think is what they're asking, you may talk to a friend and ask, what are you wearing for the event? And then you start gathering the information. You can look at Pinterest, you can look at Instagram and see, what does it mean to attend a casual wedding? What does it mean to attend a destination wedding? What can I wear for a destination wedding? So you have the resources, but it does take some research, but that's your job as the guest.
Absolutely. All right. So now let's talk about dietary restrictions and preferences. So up to now, we've talked about dietary restrictions and allergies. So again, guests, this is not all about you. I would argue, even if it is you are the guest of honor, you definitely want to be considerate and have something that most people can enjoy. So if you have serious allergies or serious restrictions, you absolutely want to communicate that. But if you just have a preference that my steaks are rare and this one came medium rare, you don't want to draw attention to you at an event. Eat what you would like, be gracious. You don't have to eat anything that you don't like, but it's not about saying, well, I don't like vanilla, I prefer chocolate. This is not about you. So, as the guest, be open, maybe try something, one or two bites, or you can politely refuse and say thank you, but no. But this is not the time for you to make it all about, I don't like salad. You can absolutely skip that course if you would like. Lucy, what would you add?
I agree on that one as well. It's not about you. The more of an issue you make, the more that you could be hurting the host's feelings. And, others around you will feel uncomfortable if you start making an issue out of something that really shouldn't be. Because again, it's about the experience, it's about the friendships, it's about the connections, and not the food.
Absolutely. Okay. So during the event, so you have arrived, people are greeting each other, you're being introduced to people. You need to try to come as your best self. Someone has taken the time to plan, to prepare, to invite you. So, whatever worries you have, just leave them behind for those couple of hours that you're going to be with others. If someone introduces you, try to make a connection. It can just be a 2 or 3 minute conversation. Find out what they have in common with the host. Maybe find out what part of the country or where they're from, if they have traveled anywhere recently, or anything about the cuisine. Try to make it pleasant so you're not awkward and making everybody wonder, like, is everything okay? Also, just like we talked about, the host sets the tone for the event. Follow the host when they signal that it's time to come to the table for dinner. Finish what you're doing, excuse me, and come to the table for dinner. Follow the host's lead with the service. You do not eat until the host begins eating or communicates, let us begin. Different cultures and different homes are different. People may want to do a blessing over the food. There may be a toast or a small speech. So you pulling up and just doing whatever you want to do is going to make you stand out, and you don't want to do that. So follow the lead. If you don't know, you can ask, and also take the time to observe what's happening around you so that you fit in. What would you add, Lucy?
I would add, as the introvert in between you and me, uh, I would say that chit-chatting and small talk for us is really challenging, but I have learned that to make something an introduction nice, you could compliment, oh my goodness, that color looks so good on you, or I love the hat you're wearing, I love that jacket, where did you get it? And that's where it's the other person can start talking about themselves, because introverts, we don't like talking about ourselves, so we put it on to the other person to start giving you the information, and that's where you start, perhaps creating a new relationship, a new connection.
Absolutely. I love that. All right. So, arrival and punctuality. So, this probably was before the event, but ladies and gentlemen, you definitely want to arrive within the time frame for the type of event. Now, those of us that come from the corporate world, When it says 5 o'clock, that's 5 o'clock. But when it comes to events at people's homes or out, there may be a little bit of wiggle room, but you definitely don't want to be, I would say, unfashionably late. So here's a few tips. For a work meeting, a dinner, or happy hour celebration, I would arrive on time. If it is a restaurant, someone is hosting at a restaurant, you can arrive within 5 to 10 minutes of the stated time. The reason why is the host has arrived early to make sure the room is prepared, make sure everything is set up, finalizing a few details with the wait staff. So you don't want to arrive and just kind of be there like, are we ready yet? So if you need to sit at the bar or sit at your car or whatnot, you can absolutely do that. If it's a dinner in someone's home, 10 to 15 minutes within the stated time. Likewise, the host is putting the finishing touches on everything and getting themselves ready to be presentable for you. Either way, you definitely don't want to arrive early because that puts pressure on the host to attend to you. So, business with right on time, restaurant 5 to 10 minutes, and then a home within 10 to 15 minutes. Culturally, it's different, but try to arrive within the time so everyone can enjoy the meal together. What would you say, Lucy?
I agree. And when in doubt, early is better than too late. And again, if it's a family gathering and you know who's going to be early, who's going to be late, that is okay. But when it comes to maybe a new relationship that you're trying to create, it's better to be on time rather than late, because it gives the perception that maybe you didn't plan accordingly, and it's just you may not want to make that first impression like that.
Oh, I love that. Dining is a huge part of relationships and that first impression. All right, so let's talk about seating etiquette. Is there such a thing? Yes, ladies. So just like we talked about, the host is responsible for making sure that the gathering goes off well. If you arrive somewhere, I would say ask first, where would you like for me to sit? Especially if you're in someone's home or at an event where you don't know everyone. If it's family, of course, just pull up a chair and you know what to do. But if there are place cards or if the host is asking you to sit somewhere, just sit somewhere that you've been instructed to. You don't want to rearrange the place card. You don't want to say, well, I don't know these people. Just try to be pleasant and strike up a conversation if you can, or just be kind. So follow the lead of the host and then sit there. If you need to attend to the ladies' room or whatnot, try to take care of all of that before the meal starts. So if you've had a long journey or if you want to touch up your face or whatnot, you can absolutely go to the ladies' room in the restaurant or ask where it is at the home and make sure that you're sorted out. Because ideally, once the meal service has begun, you really don't want to have to get up and excuse yourself, because meals are supposed to be shared and enjoyed together. So when you have to leave or send something back or whatnot, people kind of stop what they're doing and focus on you. So if you can hold it to dessert, that's the preferred thing to do. But if you are dining with someone more senior or someone that's like a VIP, I've heard if you were to dine with the Queen when she was with us, you're not allowed to get up. So just keep that in mind so that you make sure that everyone has a good time. What would you say, Lucy?
Great points. And as a guest, if you have any special needs that you need to be in an area where you need to be going in or out or use the restroom more often, you let the host know that, of those special requirements. Aside from that, yes, you follow the lead of the host.
Absolutely. Okay, so now as a guest, ordering and making menu choices. So we've talked about this. If you're in someone's home and they have prepared the meal, you will eat what is being served to you. It's actually poor etiquette to on the spot say, I don't like that. Can I have something else? We talked about at the time that you receive the invitation, if you do have dietary restrictions or allergies, definitely make that known. And it's okay when you arrive to quietly let the host know, remember, I don't eat meat. or something like that, but not, make a big deal about it. So you eat what is served or a few bites of it just to kind of keep the pleasantries going, and then you continue on with the meal. If you are dining at a restaurant and someone has invited you, like we talked about the host, your job as the guest is to follow the cues. So if they have a specific menu or if it's catered, you choose from amongst what has been provided for. You don't know what their budget is, you don't know what their reasons are. Maybe they've put something on the menu that everything can be prepared in under 10 minutes. And so they want to keep the flow going together. And it would be poor etiquette for you to ask for something that's going to take 30 minutes to prepare. So you eat what's been served. If you need to order, stick with what is presented to you. Now, if this is a type of dining experience where they give you the full restaurant menu, now your job as the guest is to pay attention to what the host does. So if the host orders a modest glass of wine, you order a modest glass of wine or a beer or whatnot. Or if you're not a drinker, you absolutely do not have to drink it all. You can politely decline or ask for a mocktail instead of a cocktail. If they order an appetizer, then you can choose something similar. If they don't, you don't. If they order something mid-range on the menu, like a chicken dish, then you find something within that same price point and order. You wouldn't want to order the rack of lamb if they ordered something modest. And then likewise with dessert, if they're not having dessert and they ask for the bill, that is your cue that the meal is over. You wouldn't want to ask, well, what about the dessert menu? So you follow the lead of the host because, again, it's not about you, it's about the occasion. All right, Lucy, what would you add?
I agree.
Okay. So now we are dining, and let's talk about polite conversation. This is where, ladies, we need to read the room. I know some of us think, well, I think this way or I feel this way, and so I'm just going to say it. That's not going to leave the best impression, especially when you're in mixed company. You may be meeting someone for the first time. It could be in-laws or future in-laws. It could be coworkers. It could be investors. It could be a potential relationship. So you want to keep it light. This is really just about establishing a connection. So what I always advise people to do is go ahead and have a few topics that you're comfortable talking about prepared ahead of time. So for example, if you like to travel and you feel comfortable talking about places you visited or places you'd like to visit, that could be something. It could be the weather, it could be any new restaurants you've chosen. You really want to avoid anything that could seem inflammatory, even certain things that you may think are innocent or everyone knows that or it's all over the news. If it's not polite conversation in a mixed group gathering of people, I would avoid it and keep those conversations with people that you know and people that you already have an established relationship with. What would you say, Lucy?
I agree. Um, there's no reason to bring controversial topics into an environment where really you may not know everyone, and you may have that one person watching you, possible next date, watching your behavior. And if you come in with such controversial topics, that may be a red flag for them. So stick to just happy, nice content, because again, you may have another event where you have your own tribe and you know how to debate and how to talk about those topics, but an environment with mixed company that you really don't know who, many people, I think that it's best to keep the topics just non-controversial.
Absolutely. And if you find yourself on the receiving end of someone who likes to debate or someone who likes to do talk about philosophical things, a couple tips, you can always just keep it light and say, wow, it seems like you really know a lot about that subject. Unfortunately, I don't. So that might be a conversation for another time. Or you could say something like, I'm just not as up to date as what's happening on this. So I'd rather not speak on something uninformed. So go ahead and be preparing what feels comfortable for you so that you can gracefully exit that conversation and redirect it to something else. So for example, I'm really not up to speed on what's happening in these international markets, so I wouldn't want to speak uninformed, but have you tried any new restaurants lately? So that's a tactic that you can use to keep it light, keep it going, not seem rude, but not get yourself in a situation where you put your foot in your mouth. All right, utensils and table manners. Now, we're going to touch on this a little bit. There are so many resources available for which fork and which knife and all of the different things. But here's some things to keep in mind. So, the utensils that are on the table all serve a purpose. So, if there's a spoon with a big bowl, that's going to be a soup spoon, as opposed to a teaspoon that could be for ice cream or something. So, if you don't know, you can absolutely ask. But you can just take a moment and take a look at the lay of the table, and you know that you work your way outside and in. And if it's a dinner service at a restaurant, they will clear the utensils as the courses go so that you're left with what's next and you go in that order. Another thing you can do is just pay attention to what others are doing around you so you can see, how does this work? And it's okay to ask. I've dined out of the country before, and there was a certain utensil on the table. I'd never seen it before. So when the wait staff arrived, I said, "Excuse me, I'm not familiar. Can you please let me know what this is for?" And they explained. It's much better to stop and ask than to have a faux pas when it comes to utensils. And then with table manners, all the things that we were raised to do. Don't talk with food in your mouth. Don't stuff a whole bunch of food in your mouth. Make sure that you take small bites. When you're having that conversation, when the other person is speaking, that's when you eat. And then you eat when they're speaking, or the other way around. You understand what I'm saying? So, really just slowing down, reading the room, and trying to fit in. And this is another reason why you don't want to arrive hangry or too hungry. Have a little bit something before so that it's a pleasant dining experience. What would you add, Lucy?
I agree. And I also agree when asking is not a big deal. Just ask how, I'm not familiar with this utensil. What would you use it for? And if you're within other cultures, that's they appreciate you asking why you are using that because it's part of their culture.
Absolutely. I love that. All right, so we talked a little bit about this was a difficult situation. Hopefully, you don't have any of this to be mindful of when you have a dining experience, but just know in every family, in every job situation, in every culture, there's always one, right? There's always someone that's going to be, a little bit trying to poke the bear. So just know that, but you don't allow their behavior or their rude comment or their backhanded compliment to get you off of your game. So you stay polite. You can respond or not respond. You can change the subject. If they're asking something that's a little too personal, you could respond with, "Oh, and what makes you ask?" Sometimes people are unaware that what they're doing is inappropriate. So there are gentle ways to remind them that this is a boundary for me, but I would be prepared on what you are comfortable saying and lead with that so you can redirect any conversations and ensure that you don't get dragged into anything. Hopefully, your host is monitoring the room and seeing if anybody's getting a little too rowdy, a little too loud, a little too tipsy, a little too hands-on, and adjusting accordingly. But just make sure that you keep your composure. What would you add, Lucy?
Yeah, I agree. And it's okay to say, you know what, this is a topic that I'm not comfortable sharing with. Let's talk about something else. So, and that's how you reroute the conversation. Sometimes you need to be a little more direct when it comes to that, because there are people that no matter what you tell them, they don't get the subtleties. So that's when you need to be a little more direct and say, I am not comfortable talking about this. And then you move on.
Absolutely. All right, let us move on. So that was the guest section. We are going to move on to the next section about the table setting and the dining experience. I love, love, love this. Okay, so in formal table settings, you can expect a usually white tablecloth. There may be chair covers, a very nice napkin that should match the tablecloth, and different cutlery for each course of the meal. So I think it's beautifully done. Try to go with the flow and use what is presented as indicating. So you can, and I've done this before, you can Google before you go somewhere. There's so many different visuals of formal place settings, but ideally, your bread is going to be on your left and your water glass is going to be on your beverages are going to be on your right. Here's a little tip. Your water glass is always the biggest one because that's what you drink the most of. Then the next larger size is your red wine glass, and your next largest size is white wine and champagne. So if you arrive at a restaurant or at someone's home and you have all of these things on the table, that means those are going to be offered to you. You may have noticed when you go to a restaurant, if you choose not to have wine, they'll remove the wine glass from the table. So just again, slowing down to understand for formal events, everything that is there is for a particular purpose. I think it's beautiful. Don't let it intimidate you, but just take time to enjoy. What would you say, Lucy?
And these are things that you learn as you go. It's not that you're going to know from the beginning. Again, very rarely have I been invited to a formal event, but it's good to have it, in the background to know that that's how tables are set and that's how you're going to see your utensils, the utensil spread and the glasses, what each mean and so forth.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk a little bit about it. So you can see this picture here. This is just a sample. There are so many. So let's just kind of look at this from left to right. So up here on the top left, this is going to be your bread saucer. And you notice this utensil that looks like a little bit spatula, a little bit knife. This is going to be your butter. So what you would do is if there's a bread basket, well, there would be a bread basket. If you see this on the table, you can tell that there's going to be bread served at this meal. So you can kind of take a moment to look at what's here, and that's what's going to be available for you to choose from. You would take the bread from the bread basket with your hands, that is a finger food. You would place it on your own bread plate. At no time do you ever take from the shared containers and go directly to your mouth. So you want to avoid that. Even if it's just take it on the plate and then take it from the plate to your mouth. Take time to do that. Likewise with the sauces, the butters, the spread. So with the butter knife, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to scoop some of the butter in the shared container and put that onto your individual bread and butter plate. And that's what you eat from. When it comes to bread, you tear off a small bite-sized piece with your hands. You take a little bit of butter and you just butter that piece, and then you pop it in your mouth. You don't saw into it like a saw. You don't slather the whole thing with butter and close it up like a sandwich, and you don't put the whole loaf in your mouth and yank it away. Always think small, delicate bites when you're dining with others. So then coming down here on the left, you see the napkin in the ring. The napkin is actually the first thing that you are going to tend to when you sit down. It could be on the left like this. It could be in the middle. It could be anywhere, but you're going to unroll it carefully, and you don't want to flap it out to the side like a huge sheet. You want to put it in your lap. If it's a small napkin, then you would place the whole thing in your lap. If it's the large square, we've talked about this in our classes, you close it in half with the seam side facing you so that when you need to dab the corners of your mouth, if you need to, that's the side that gets closed down in your lap because you never want to expose anyone to your to your food or lipstick stain. So you can dab your fingers or the corner of your mouth. You see here with the forks that we've got, looks like a salad fork, an appetizer fork, and the dinner fork. All you need to worry about here is from the outside in. So the larger fork is what you would use for your main course, and then looks like there's an appetizer and a salad. Likewise, on the right-hand side, and you can see here, I'm already looking at this one, the second from the right. I'm not familiar what that is, so I would ask. But it looks like we have a corresponding appetizer fork, knife that goes with the fork. You can see this big spoon here. There's going to be a soup course, and I think this looks like a bowl right here. I'm not familiar. I think this is a fish knife, but there's a certain knife that can kind of take the bones and the skin off of fish. I think that's what it is. And then your dinner knife. So again, it looks like a lot, but just go from the outside in and wait as you have each course. With the spoon for the soup, you want to actually spoon away from you, and then you just kind of tilt the bowl of the spoon back in your mouth. For dessert spoons, you come from the front. For soup spoons, you go to the side. So keeping that in mind. Then we already talked about the water glass right here is going to be the biggest one. Then we can see here they've got a red wine glass, a white wine glass, oh my goodness, a champagne glass, and so much more. Lastly, over here, there's going to be coffee served or available. So sometimes these may be on the table all at once. Sometimes they'll come to you as the courses are served. So that's going to be your cup and saucer, which stay together, and your stirring spoon for the coffee. You just want to do delicately top and bottom. You don't want to clank, 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 clank it around. And then the last one up at the top here is going to be for your dessert. So once everything is cleared away, the serving staff will actually move it down to the sides, and that's how you enjoy your dessert. So again, it's a lot, but it's not for you to memorize any of this. There are so many examples of this online. Some places are going to have all of this and more, or just a few things, but just kind of reading the room will help you feel more comfortable. What would you add, Lucy?
I agree. And the more events you push yourself into attending, that's where you're going to start learning how to read the room, how to read the table to see what's on it. And asking is not a sin. You can always ask what each of those items are used for.
Absolutely. All right, so let us continue on napkin etiquette. So unlike this little dispenser here, this is not what you would expect at a formal event. But I just wanted to draw attention to when you sit down, the napkin is very important. It protects your clothes, but it goes on your lap, ladies. It doesn't go into your neckline. We aren't children. You want to spread it down on your lap. And if you need to tend to your napkin, you do it underneath the table. All right. So only quietly if you need to dab, and then it stays down. If you ever need to leave the table for a reason and come back. Hopefully you don't, but if you need to step out and take a phone call, go to the ladies' room, the napkin that's in your lap, if you're coming back, the napkin goes in the seat. And that's what signifies to the staff that someone is coming back. If you're done with your meal and you're ready to exit, the napkin goes to the left of your plate. Once it's on the table to the left of your plate, that says, we are done eating. I'm not returning. Now, you do not want to put the napkin on the food. You don't want to cover the food. You don't want to put it in anything saucy to stain it. So just keep that in mind when it comes to napkin etiquette and how that can signify. Would you add anything, Lucy?
Nothing to add. It's perfect.
Okay, perfect. Let us continue here. Challenging foods. Now, depending on what's being served, and I would say as a host, this is one of the things I would consider. I would try to serve something that almost everyone can eat easily. But there are some times, whether it's a soup dish or whether it's shellfish or something that's a little bit tricky. So what you'll want to do here, if the menu is provided ahead of time, then you can practice a little bit. But if not, the biggest thing is really slowing down. So we talked about the soup, just getting a little bit of soup and drinking from the side of the bowl. Shellfish actually is a finger food. So if you need to eat oysters or whatnot, there's a way to kind of loosen or mussels or whatnot. You can loosen the uh, the the meat. Same thing with like peel and eat shrimp or whatever. It's okay. Some foods are a little bit more challenging, but if you slow down and if you're not frustrated and if you ask, let's say you're going somewhere and someone's got the soft shell crab and you're not really sure how to ask how to eat it. Like Lucy said, people who this is how they eat, maybe this is part of their culture, they love sharing and they love showing other people this is how we eat. So if it's African food and we eat with our hands, go ahead and eat with your hands. So just ask, and that can be a fun, enjoyable part of the learning experience. What would you say, Lucy?
Asking and watching and enjoying the entire experience,
Mhm.
just making sure that um, you don't make it about yourself. You watch your host, listen to what because they're probably going to have instructions on how to put it together. I think that's the fun part of it.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about toasting and a little bit of wine. So if you drink wine, and even if you don't, the wine etiquette, we talked about ordering or selecting something at a modest price point, or if someone is providing wine to you, they may ask, would you like red or white? And you just take whatever you would like. This is not the time, if you're a wine snob or a wine aficionado, to be critical of anything. We always know, ladies, with stemware, any glass, water glass or wine glass that has a stem, you want to hold it at the stem. You don't want to grab it as the at the bowl part of it, because it gets your fingerprints on the glass, and then also wine is supposed to be enjoyed at the temperature that it's served. So if you're holding your champagne glass like this, it's going to warm up and won't be as bubbly. So practice. This is something you can get a dollar store wine glass. Of course, this glass is stemless, but you can practice with one and taking small, silent sips. Now, when it comes to toasting, this may happen at the beginning of a meal. This may happen towards the end of a meal with dessert or whatnot. So if you are the guest of honor and someone wants to raise a toast in your honor, excuse me, you would just sit and graciously receive the toast. You don't applaud yourself and you never toast yourself. That is poor etiquette. However, if you are asked to speak or raise a toast to someone else, it could be as simple as, drink to your good health or cheers. You could clink the glasses. You don't have to, but sometimes people do that. But if you ever need to say something on the fly, one of the things I love telling students is think of something from the past, something from the present, and something in the future about the guest of honor. And that's an easy way to do a toast on the fly. So, for example, today we are toasting Maggie, the substitute teacher. I remember when she was in school and said that she always wanted to be a teacher. She loved being around little kids. And now look at her. She started her own private academy for young ladies, and we're all learning so much and watching her grow. I know the best is yet to come, and she's going to influence so many lives with her substitute teaching. Three cheers for Maggie. So something from the past, from the present, and from the future, and then you cheers, have a drink, and that's it. So just a few things to keep in mind with toasting and wine etiquette. What would you add, Lucy?
Perfect. And also remember, as a host, it's a good idea to have non-alcoholic beverage for those that decide not to drink alcohol. And I learned that in some cultures, toasting with water is bad luck. So you may want to just put in 7-Up or Sprite. And also at a table, anything above 5 to 6 people, you don't have to toast against each other's glasses. You can only say cheers, not have to clink it or anything. Just to show your support for that toast.
I love it. That's a great tip. Okay, so silent signals. If you need anything and you are a guest at an event or a dinner party or a restaurant, again, it's not about you and it's not about the food. You are there, you have been invited to enjoy and have a good time. So if you need anything, you can quietly make your requests known. You don't want to shout, you don't want to yell, you don't want to, make a scene. So a few things that you can do. Usually, if you're at a restaurant or even at someone's home, the host is scanning the room, like we talked about earlier, to make sure everything's okay. So you can just kind of wait, and when their eyes meet yours, you can just do a little nod just to kind of say, I need something. That way you're not distracting other people who are having a good time and have no idea that you asked for a vegetarian meal and your plate came with a steak, right? You could quietly get someone's attention. Also, you could do something where it's just a little quiet, like raising of the hands close to your body, for the wait staff or for the host. And then, as Lucia said, when they come to you, just quietly let them know whatever it is. But what you don't want to do is make any kind of scenes. You don't want to distract anyone. If anybody asks, is everything okay? Just say, oh, yes, everything's fine. Please continue. And then you handle whatever it is quietly. So those are some things that you can do if something does come up. It's not about suffering in silence, but it's also not about making a scene. What would you add, Lucy?
I agree about it's not about you and not making a scene. It's about making it comfortable for the host and everyone around you.
Absolutely. All right. So we're going to move on to the next section, which is communication and conversation during the event. All right, introductions and small talk. So for those of us that are the extroverts, for those of us that are the social butterflies, we never met a stranger, right? But that's not everyone. So whether you're the host or whether you're the guest, you have a part to play to make sure that people feel comfortable. When you're introduced to someone, just be pleasant. A nice handshake, eye contact, pleasure to meet you, or hello, how do you do, or whatever the greeting is. Small talk, like I said before, have a couple of things in your back pocket that you feel comfortable talking about and leading with that. Or I love what Lucy said, asking them questions. People love to talk about themselves. And then you can say, oh, really? Tell me more. And then you add a little bit if you feel comfortable. As the host, if you know you have guests that have a little something in common, try to introduce them to each other and just let the conversation take from there. Also, if you have someone that is an introvert or new to the area or a new student or a new family member, and you come from a big, loud, boisterous family and maybe they're a little bit reserved, you can find someone that's a little bit more their speed to kind of be their buddy. So what you don't want to do is stand over in the corner, when are we going to eat? Because again, that stops the flow of the event and all eyes focus on you. So that's not what you want. So you can just make it a little bit pleasant, even if it's not your favorite thing. Try to read the room and you can just nod and smile, read the body language. If people ask you questions, just answer whatever you're comfortable with. This is not going to last forever. You'll be able to retreat back to your happy place later, but you want to try to make it a good event for everyone. Lucy, what would you add?
And that as a host, when you're setting up your RSVPs, it's always a good idea to have a +1 in case that one introverted person has that +1 that's a little more outgoing and they want to bring them along just as a sign of support or a safety blanket, just in case they don't feel comfortable in the environment, the new environment that they're going to be in.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about active listening skills during a conversation. And this is something that a lot of us have to work on because we don't really listen well. We're usually thinking about what we want to say and we just blow past what the other person is saying. So listening is part of the conversation. It's not just about you talking, especially those of us who like to talk. You really do need to allow for that dance, that give, that take. Now, someone's going to feel a little bit more comfortable than the other person, but especially when you're talking to an introvert or someone who's new or maybe a child or someone who's a little bit nervous about it, really paying attention and listening and making that eye contact and then asking a little qualifying questions. Oh, really? You just went to France. Tell me what were some of the favorite things that you saw or that you did. It allows that person to kind of relax a little bit and feel more comfortable, like, oh, okay, you really are listening to me, because a lot of times we don't do that. So that is a skill that you can practice in relationship, in business, in anything. But when you are having an event, this is a great time while they're speaking and you're eating, really listen to what they say. What would you say, Lucy?
And I guarantee you that the next time you meet that person, they're going to say, you listened to the things I was telling you. You remember that. And that makes such an impression on some folks that it pays to be a good listener.
100%. All right. Engaging in polite conversation. So we talked a little bit about this. We know there's some topics that you want to avoid. So I would say religion and politics are usually the two biggest ones, just because, again, if you're in mixed company, you don't know other people's backgrounds and you don't want to offend. Also, there are some other topics that you may think, oh, it's just harmless. But, with the pandemic, vaccinated or not vaccinated, people feel very strongly either way wherever they land. If there's a global conflict or a war going on and you have very strong feelings about either side, you can keep your responses neutral about humanity, or if it's something about the pandemic, I really hope we get through this, or just something that doesn't seem like it is landing on either side, because you don't want to offend, and you never know if who you're talking to is looking for someone to be disagreeable. So
Mhm.
remember those things that are in your back pocket. Oh, yeah, it seems like you're really passionate about this issue. Unfortunately, I'm not as informed, so I'd rather not say anything, that I'm not educated on. Let's talk about travel. What's your favorite or your dream destination, right? So you can acknowledge it, you can redirect, and then you can change the conversation to keep it polite. What would you say, Lucy?
I love the redirection part. It's so true. There are some personalities that enjoy that banter and debating, but when it comes to having a peaceful or just enjoyable event, why would you want to get into that? So redirecting it to something general as travel is the best thing that you could do.
Absolutely. All right. And we talked a little bit about this, avoiding controversial subjects. Just don't do it. There's no reason to. If you are introduced to people that you don't already have a personal relationship with, you could even say something like, you know what, I would love to talk to you more about the meaning of life. Let's do that over coffee at another time. So if it's somebody that you really hit it off with and you want to do that, that's fine. But you really want to try and think about, in these types of events, people are usually mingling, right? So someone may want to join the conversation, someone may leave the conversation. So you want to try and keep it light and uncontroversial, if that's a word. So anybody who's in the space can chime in or listen in pleasantly. So we talked about some things to avoid, and as a guest, you can also do a little bit of research, like Lucy talked about culturally. There may be some topics that in certain cultures, we don't talk about. What happens, in the afterlife. I'm making it up, but you want to make sure you know what you're stepping into. And then as a host, if you hear anything that's or see anything that's happening that could go left, you can say, okay, everyone, we're going to move on to dessert now. Or, okay, everyone, we're going to play a game. Or, let's talk about dream vacation. So you can kind of get everyone's attention to kind of say, oh, oh, okay, and redirect them if you notice that. But as a guest, the best key is just to avoid anything that could be controversial. I know. But the good thing is, if you like to debate, you know who your people are. And when
Mhm.
you're around them, go for it. What would you say, Lucy?
Totally agree. And especially if you travel a lot and you go into other cultures, you want to stay away from anything that could be controversial because again, we're so used to living in the United States where you could probably talk about anything and everything, but in other countries, there are specific topics that you cannot touch, you cannot discuss, you can't even hint because it has really serious uh, consequences if you do so. Yeah, getting used to avoiding controversial subjects when you're in mixed company is your best option.
Agreed. All right. So, in closing, this has been really, really fun for us to share with you all. We'll just kind of recap a few of the things, but this is just to remind you, come back to this course anytime you're going to be hosting an event, anytime you're going to be invited to an event. These are skills that sometimes you may get a little bit rusty and you need to refresh on. That's what we do here at the Finishing School for the Modern Woman. We're going to have our flagship courses as well as a lot of these mini courses that you can come to because you will have lifetime access once you have purchased it. So let's summarize what we've talked about here. So the key takeaways. So whether you are a host or whether you are a guest, there are things that you should do and a role that you play so that the event goes off with a hitch, without a hitch. So again, as the host, make sure you've communicated and set the tone with the invitation. As the guest, make sure you respond to that invitation and try as close as you can to do what you said you were going to do. As the host, try to plan something modest and enjoyable when it comes to a meal, as well as considering any dietary restrictions or allergies. Likewise, as the guest, make sure you're communicating if you have anything that's not just a preference, but a serious allergy or restriction, make sure you communicate that. For the host and the guest, eat something before you go. You don't want to be hangry as the host. You don't want to be hangry as the guest. It's not about the food. You want everybody to come and have a good time. Try to eat in the same pace with others. If you're ordering food or ordering drink, read the room and see what kind of everybody else is doing and just go with the flow. Try to have some light conversation, maybe meet new people if you want to, or just reconnect with other people. Keep the conversation light at an event like this. You want everybody to come and have a good time and leave having had a good time. Lucy, would you want to add anything?
It's all about the experience. And I have usually when I attend an event, I go in with a curiosity mind. I want to find out, I want to know about who's going to be there, how it's going to happen. So having that light-hearted, non-expectation that helps a lot on making it light. And again, it's an experience. It's something that hopefully you're going to enjoy, but you have to come in with that curious and non-expecting heart after doing your job as a guest, sending the RSVP, letting them know whether you have allergies and so forth. Once you're in, it's all about exploring.
Absolutely. All right, so whenever you watch this course, if you have questions, you can absolutely leave your questions in the comments below. We love this type of discussion. Lucy and I are available. We have weekly Q&As, or you can reach out to me one-on-one. If you have an event that you've been invited to and you're not really sure what to do, if you're hosting an event and you feel a little bit nervous about that, we love coaching you all through it, whether it's gifts and thank you cards and whatever is appropriate. Whenever you dine with people, especially for the first time in mixed company, you're saying more about who you are, and it tells a lot to the company around you whether or not they want to dine with you again or invite you out again, or if they want to come to your home again, or if they say no, that was a disaster for these reasons. So the reason we put this course together is so you all feel comfortable going into any environment, again, slowing down, reading the room, and being open to new experiences. Would you add anything, Lucy?
I wouldn't add anything else. That was perfect.
All right, so 4 additional resources. So the Finishing School for the Modern Woman is always here for you. We have our flagship course once per quarter. It is an 8-week course that Lucy and I teach live, private on Zoom, just like this, to ladies of all ages, from teenager and up. So that's going to be our Saturday school, where we cover dining, but not in as much detail. That's why you have this master class. We also have available for you a feminine movement course if you want to make sure when you go to that dinner party, you know how to walk into a room elegantly and carry yourself. We have that course available for you. We have digital downloads. We have our weekly Q&A that's available, and the Elegance Boot Camp, depending on when you watch this, that's going to be coming up, or you'll be able to refer to that. So you can find all of these resources and more at teachablemomentswithmaggie.com, because I always like to say our journey never ends. The femininity, the elegance, and the etiquette we can always refine. And there's more resources outside of what Lucy and I are sharing with you here. Feel free to learn in other areas. We've taken classes, and this is how we all get better. Would you add anything, Lucy?
I wouldn't add anything else. We hope to see you in our weekly YouTube encounters, and hopefully you can share that information with those who are interested in attending the Finishing School for the Modern Woman. The new session starts in January, so we are taking in new registrations, and we hope to see you either on our weeklies or at the school.
Absolutely. So with that, we love your feedback. Please let us know, reach out to me directly or Lucy, or you can drop a comment below in the section where you purchased the course. If there's one thing that would have made this experience better for you, we want to make sure that we give back and provide a great experience. So let us know your thoughts. Let us know what other topics you want us to do a deep dive on so that we can build a library of these master classes. Once you purchase the courses, you have lifetime access. So you can always come back and refresh. If there's an area that you're struggling with that you want us to present to you, we'd be happy to, and we would love your feedback. Lucy, would you add anything?
I think we're good.
All right. Well, with that, everyone, we are going to wrap it up. This has been the Hosting and Guest Etiquette Masterclass. I really hope after listening and watching what Lucy and I have shared with you, you feel more confident, you feel almost excited about either hosting people or having a dinner party in your home or in a restaurant, or going as a guest and understanding what your role is as a host and your role is as a guest. So we wish you the happiest of seasons, whether it's for the holidays. We wish you wonderful dining experiences, and come back and let us know and update in the comments what you learned and how it's going for you. Lucy, would you like to say anything as we close out?
I agree. Just let us know if you hosted or if you were a guest and you used some of these techniques and how it all turned out.
Fantastic. All right, everyone, we will go ahead and dismiss until the next masterclass. Thank you all so much for believing in us and purchasing this course, and we'll see you either in Saturday school or in our weekly Wildcard Wednesdays where you can ask us anything. Until then, goodbye.
Adios.